So I, 32, was supposed to get married a few weeks ago. My job is in logistics, which is basically a fancy way of saying I spend all day making sure complicated stuff happens smoothly and without drama. I kind of figured my life was the same way. 5 years with my fiancée, a wedding on the horizon, everything on a predictable path. Well, I was wrong. The whole thing was a train wreck, and I was just a guy reading the schedule, not realizing I was tied to the tracks. We're in the final countdown to the wedding. You know how it is. We're at the kitchen table, which is covered in invitation samples and spreadsheets, basically arguing about fonts. My fiancée is scrolling through the guest list on her laptop. We're 3 people over, she says, not looking at me. My mom is going to flip. No problem. I say, trying to be helpful. We can cut a couple of my work buddies, or maybe that one cousin you haven't seen since you were 6? She shakes her head. That's not it. She takes a deep breath and finally turns to me. She has this look on her face, like she's about to confess to breaking a lamp, but expects a pat on the head for her honesty. I added someone. It's my ex. I just stared. This wasn't just some random ex. This was the guy she lived with for 4 years right before me. The one she always called her best friend. A little detail that always bothered me, but I learned to ignore. I honestly thought they barely even talked anymore. You what? I asked, keeping my voice as steady as I could. I invited him, she says, all casual. We're just so close. It would be weird for him not to be there. He's a huge part of my life. He's a huge part of your past, I said. This is supposed to be about our future. I'm really not comfortable with your long-term ex watching us exchange vows. It's weird. And just like that, her whole vibe changed. The pleading look was gone, and her jaw was set. I knew you'd be insecure about this. It is completely platonic. We're friends. Good friends. It's a boundary. I told her. A normal one. The rules should be simple. No exes at the wedding. I wouldn't invite mine. You don't invite yours. She actually scoffed. Well, I wouldn't care if you invited your exes, because I'm secure. This is about you trusting me. Then she went in for the kill. She looked me right in the eye, her voice deadly serious. I already sent the invite, and he already said yes. If you love me, you would understand. The room went dead quiet. I looked at her, and it was like a light bulb went on. She wasn't asking me. She was telling me. She genuinely believed that love meant I had to swallow anything she dished out. It was a test, and the only way to pass was to give in. All the other times I just let things go to avoid a fight suddenly made sense. This is who she was. I took a second, then gave her a slow nod. You know what? You're right. I do understand. A huge, triumphant smile spread across her face. She thought she'd won. Thank you. I knew you'd get it. Oh, I get it completely, I said again. I got up, left the wedding junk on the table, and went into my office and shut the door. I understood that this wasn't about love. It was a power play, and I was done. I opened up my laptop, a little social media digging, and there he was. Lots of happy photos with his wife of 2 years. His wife, who I figured had no clue her husband was going to watch his ex-girlfriend get married. I clicked on her profile. She looked sweet, normal, and a plan, a very simple A to B plan, clicked into my head. I found a way to message her and started typing. My message was super polite. I introduced myself, said my fiancée was so thrilled her dear friend, her ex, was coming, and that I wanted to personally extend an invitation to his wife, too. I said I wanted to make sure she felt welcomed by both of us. The next morning, she replied. She was so happy and said she was touched I reached out because she thought it was a little strange her husband only got a solo invite. She said she would love to be my plus one. Perfect. The next couple weeks, my fiancée was disgustingly cheerful, acting like I was a puppy who had finally learned a trick. She dropped comments about how mature we were all being. I just smiled and nodded. I never mentioned my plus one. I mean, it's a plus one, it's a given, right? About a week before the wedding, she started getting edgy, picking fights about dumb stuff. Then, 2 days before the rehearsal dinner, I get a call from the ex's wife. Her voice was shaky. "Sorry to bother you," she said, "but my husband is being so secretive about your wedding and something just feels wrong. Is there anything I should know about his friendship with your fiancée?" This was it. "Can you meet for coffee tomorrow?" I asked. We met the next morning. I laid out the whole story. As I'm talking, the color drains from her face. She pulls out her phone and shows me their credit card statement. There are thousands of dollars in charges at fancy boutiques and spas, all places my fiancé loves. Then she shows me a bank transfer. $15,000 from their joint savings to my fiancé's personal account from 3 months ago. "He said it was a loan for his cousin's business," she whispered. My stomach dropped. That was the exact amount my fiancée had proudly contributed to our wedding fund from her savings. It wasn't just shady texts. This was a long-term financial scheme. They were bleeding her husband's family dry, and I was the next part of the plan. "Are you still coming to the rehearsal dinner?" I asked. A fire lit in her eyes. "Oh, yeah, and I'm bringing party favors." The rehearsal dinner was at a nice restaurant. Both our families are there. Everyone's happy. My fiancée, in a white dress, sees me walking alone and gives me a kiss. "See? Everything's fine," she whispers. Her ex shows up a minute later, all smiles and smug handshakes. They share a hug that goes on way too long. I walk over. "Glad you could make it," I say, shaking his hand. "My plus one is just parking." My fiancé's smile vanished. "Your plus one?" Just then, the door opens and in walks the ex's wife, looking like $1,000,000 in a killer red dress. She walks right to me, gives me a hug, and says loudly, "Thank you for inviting me." My fiancé's face was a sheet. The ex looked like he was going to be sick. "What is she doing here?" he sputtered. "He invited me." His wife said, taking my arm. Thoughtful, right? The whole room went quiet. My fiancée dragged me to a corner. "What did you do?" she hissed. "I just made sure everyone felt included." I said calmly, "Like you wanted." The toast started. Her dad gushed about his amazing daughter. Then my dad stood up and talked about how marriage is built on honesty and trust. Every word was a gut punch. Then the ex's wife stood up. "I'd like to make a toast," she said, her voice carrying through the silent room. "To honesty." She looked right at her husband and my fiancé. "For instance, the honesty to tell your wife you're loaning $15,000 to a cousin when it's really for your ex-girlfriend to trick her fiancé into thinking she has money." You could have heard a pin drop. Her mom dropped her fork. The wife wasn't finished. She pulled a stack of papers from her purse. "And to being honest about the thousands of dollars you've been spending on her from your joint account." I brought the receipts. She slapped the bank statements on the table. My fiancé started screaming that she was crazy and lying. The ex was trying to grab the papers. I stood up. "The wedding is off," I said to the room. I took the engagement ring from my pocket. It was a nice ring. I thought I'd paid for it. I looked at the papers, then at the ex's wife. "Actually, I think this belongs to you. Seems like you paid for most of it." I dropped the ring on the table. It clattered next to the proof of their little scam. And to my ex-fiancée, I said, looking right at her, "I finally, truly understand everything." Absolute mayhem. My fiancée was screaming. Her parents were panicking, and the ex was trying and failing to get his wife to leave. She just looked at him and said, "My lawyer is calling you tomorrow." I didn't stick around to watch the rest. My family and I just walked out. I spent the next day canceling a wedding, and every call felt like another pound of weight off my shoulders. My ex and her family blew up my phone for days with every excuse and threat you can imagine. I blocked them all. Long story short, the ex's wife took him to the cleaners in the divorce. My ex-fiancée, with no job and no one to pay her bills, had to move back in with her parents. She tried to sue me for wedding costs, which went absolutely nowhere. I lost some deposits, but I saved myself a lifetime of lies. It was the best deal I ever made.